Callisto Protocol is a game that you shouldn't really abbreviate, kinda like Cyberpunk. Jokes aside, the Callisto Protocol was a game with potential that I mostly liked, but it was clearly rushed for launch and had some pieces missing from what I can gather with interviews from Glenn by the YouTuber Dan Allen Gaming, name in the description. In this video I want to point out those pieces of potential, like the focus on melee, or that tentacle mutation thing, and some other stuff. So, without further delay, let's begin the video. So the game begins with a video of a biological attack believed to be committed by the Outer Way on Europa, one of their leaders being the culprit. Jacob and his space trucker friend Max talk about the trips from Callisto and Europa for Black Iron, all the additional security, the attacks by the Outer Way, and this being their last job. Also, an alarm from the cargo bay happens, so we gotta check it out. Along the way, we listen to an audio log made by ourselves saying that we don't know why Max cares so much about this job, as we've did this before, and it's best for us to keep our mouths shut and heads down. So, clearly into something suspicious about this job. We also see the only ever clean toilet in the game. Why does it have a UV light in it? We check on the cargo, it's safe, gets sprayed by steam, and it turns out we've been breached by the Outer Way. We sneak past while they search the place. We try and lock 'em in whilst trying to vent 'em Among Us style, but Danny, the leader of the Outer Way, is here herself and shoots the window, spelling doom for us all. We try and land safely somewhat, but crash and survive. But Max didn't safely land. Can I show this on YouTube? To be safe, no. He says, why did we not listen, and passes away, rescued by robots and Starkiller? The guy from Days Gone saves us and finds Danny as one of the survivors. Jacob tells Captain Ferris that she crashed his ship, but Ferris gets orders to arrest Jacob, too, for unknown reasons. We get transported off into Black Iron Prison, with Ferris talking about we're in his kingdom now. Getting our HUD installed, we see that they don't really care how they do it, and even have biophage pictures in the background. Now in a prison cell within a hallucination sequence, we see the music box from the starting news report, and jump scare. Now I want to say they did this jump scare way too obviously, and they could have done better because I've seen they've done better later on, and they've also done a more low-key and cool jump scare that we're going to see soon. Waking up, we notice the door opens. Exiting the cell, people are running, a guy is falling, and the guards within their watchtower are panicking, and the people are transforming within their cells. We meet another prisoner, Elias, that will help us escape if we free him from the base of the tower. We make our way over and open it up and get the tutorial for the game's dodge, which is really easy as long as you remember to dodge in the opposite direction of your previous dodge, which is one of the problems with this game's combat system. A solution would be a time-based dodge, dodging out the directions of the attack with a minor delay between each dodge. I also have other solutions for the combat, but I'm going to save that up until we get the gun and the grip, so hold on with me. We see our first biophage and beat him up. We also can perfect dodge, which I don't know how they really work in the game, so I'm just not going to speak on it. We free Elias and meet back up with him, but the gate's locked, so we gotta go another way. Along the way, we pick up an audio log made by Captain Ferris about how he misses how the old warden did things. Another thing to note about these audio logs is there's an extra info page about these audio logs, and if you read it, most importantly about the guards of the prison, they all have a history of violent behaviour and still work at Black Iron because they don't really care. They literally have a gun that's being tested there on the prisoners. They have spikes on the wall that you can throw people at. They don't care. Also, I like how they eventually patched it in so you can walk around and listen to these things. Enter in solitary, we see a guy being dragged up into the vents, and the really good scare I was talking about, I'll just leave it to you to listen to. Now do you get what I mean? They can do better. Anyway, moving through the place, we suffer a bit of audio hallucinations like whispering and dirty toilets. Well, no, the dirty toilets are real, they're not hallucinations. This random body that also has a parasite spawn when you stomp on it, which is the only body that ever does it for some reason. A little further on, we see what happens when you face off against one of the bots. And also the origin of that one gif where the Iron Golem butchers Steve as a part of one of the death scenes if you get caught. Anyways, we sneak past him. It's really easy. And I grabbed the first audio log by Mauler, the woman who put the UI in our neck, talking about arriving at Black Iron and getting approval to restart the program, which is experimenting on prisoners with the biophage parasite. We also find our first worm box, which is kinda annoying. I wish there was a way of knowing if there was one inside, like blood on the outside of the box to indicate, one of these things are inside of this. We find our first Warden Cole hologram. He speaks on change, making the best version of ourselves. We'll find more of these holograms throughout the game because Cole is watching Jacob's progression through his escape of the prison and wants him to learn something. We also squeeze ourselves through some vents, which I've heard a lot of people don't like about this game. I don't really mind it, but I get where it can kind of be annoying. After that, we obtain the baton that will serve us throughout the game. But two things I will have to say. One, a game set in a prison should have more weapons based on the crazy stuff prisoners create. The only thing that we really get is a shank. Two, more melee weapons than just the baton. We're already putting an emphasis on melee, so it's really weird to have more guns than melee weapons. Now we're going to be going to the watchtower, where the guards were in. We fight some biophage along the way and collect an audio log by Elias saying he can't figure out the new warden, and him needed to be ready, so likely meaning for escape. In the tower, Ferris is behind a glass screen, giving orders to his guards as we try and sneak past him, but we get caught. Angry at us, he throws us about and questions us why the warden wants us alive. But with quick wits, we open up the door with biophage behind it, and Ferris gets attacked. Ferris will survive this giant fall though because he will get infected. Or maybe he was infected prior to our meeting, or maybe a little bit after. Moving on to the next chapter, we meet with Elias again and get a gun frame from him, in which he takes off the gun part. I feel like there should have been a line in the game about, this gun part being broken to explain why he took it off. Because otherwise it's so stupid why he did. So we have to print out a new gun part onto the gun frame. I also like to say I like seeing my weapons visually change when they're upgraded. Elias explains that he has a plan to break out a hacker out of the shoe to call in a shuttle so Jacob can fly it out and they escape. Now moving on to the hallway, we see a big mouth infect a guard and run off. We get a tutorial about if we hit a biophage enough, a target appears that we can auto-lock on with our gun and shoot, which does a lot of damage and takes off a limb. But instead I take the route of interrupting his attacks by shooting him, which is similar to just bullying the thing outright. We also get our first tutorial for a stealth kill. It's simple, you crouch, walk up behind it and activate the prompt. We also get to meet the big mouth again. I really like the design on these guys over the regular biophage. The two heads fused is really cool. And what also makes them different from the regular guys is the ability to spit those worms, so aiming at the head is a good idea, and also the infection tentacle grab thing that it does. After some crawling, we do some stealth and learn that the codes to open up some doors are actually linked to the UI upon our necks, specifically the guards. So we gotta remove the guard's core UI from his neck. Once that's done, we get an audio log from which the guard is replied to by the warden. The warden has a rather calm tone, he's just saying he's watching everything from his tower. Now, why Cole sounds so calm is because he's started this outbreak, mostly wanting to see a biophage with human intelligence. Moving on, we see a biophage fake death and a worm in a washing machine. Also, another audio log of a guard being captured by inmates and suffering a bad fate. Another thing to note about these core devices is that not all of them are just a slab of metal upon someone's neck, but sometimes implanted within them, below the skin. Seeing a biophage teleport off, I enter the room which it was in, and crawl through this vent. We enter an older looking place. I think this is a place connected to a law location called Arcus, an old mining colony that Black Iron was built upon. More on that later. In this place, we find a weird, cool looking hideout with a audio log by Warden Cole. Speaking of ooh, I'm gonna struggle saying this word. Callipolis? Callipolis, yeah. We won't know much about this cult until we get to the DLC, unfortunately. Cole promises results after years of misguided efforts, as evolution happens in the wild, not in the lab. We see the efforts of the biophage to jump me and one crashing through a glass pane window. Now in a medbay looking place, I get an audio log with a doctor talking about how many patients are piling up and where is Mauler. A biophage tries to jump scare me and, yo, we now have the grip glove. It's finally time to speak about what ideas I have to improve the combat. So, beginning off with my first change, I believe adding a stamina system will help. I think I read somewhere once that the game was gonna have one, but I can't find the source about it, so I think I might have imagined it up. Alright, how would it work? After a few dodges, Jacob would get tired and would not be able to dodge anymore, and he would have to wait for a while for it to fill up again. Very simple. Now, I think this would make the player think about the resources that they have. Will they block and take a bit of damage? Will they shoot, which will stun and stagger the enemy for a while? Or that bullet could have been used for a guarantee limb shot off, or to prevent a mutation, or use the crypt glove to throw them away for a while so you can recover the stamina. But this throw could have been used for an environmental kill. I think this is where you could see the game becoming more funner, where the player would have to think tactically. The last two improvements would have been to make a perfect block that you would take no damage from and would electrically charge the baton to do more damage. Also, a time-based dodge, so I couldn't just walk in the opposite direction of my previous dodge because, well, it makes the game very easy. Alright, getting back on track about progressing through the game, we grab a fuse for later and see a hologram of a doctor and a guard trying to hold down a biophage. It doesn't go well. End up fighting some biophage and upgrading my gun. This handle, which is an upgrade for the gun, is for stability, but you don't see Jacob use it, so it's really weird that it's just there. We see a room full of those strung up by the inmates and also an audio log of the guard begging the inmates not to torture him. I think they did. Going down a faulty elevator, we see, I don't know what these things are called, head tentacles? They will attempt to drag us towards the pod that they emerge from and insta-kill us. I have an idea for them in the mutation section, so more on them later. End up fighting some more biophage and get ourselves a schematic for a weapon. It takes up one inventory slot. Now we are near the shoe and, well, this thing's pretty big. Jacob tries to contact Elias with no answer, but it turns out he was just staying quiet because there's biophage nearby. Anyway, a little lore on this schematic. It was that weapon I was talking about before that's being tested in Black Iron. It really does show you how, they don't care within this prison, and the prisoners are just kind of an experiment. Going over to the shoe, we see these guys who pop out. So I just pull them forward and allow them to fall down. Anyway, we boot up this safety hazard of a room so I can start throwing biophage all around within it. This guy crawls out, and I would just like to say, these crawling enemies, I would have liked it if it was a stomp finish on them instead of just whacking them with the baton. I think it would have been much cooler. Anyway, I flick a button and fight some biophage on the way to the hacker's cell. Hey, is that one on fire? Opening up the cell door, the hacker is nowhere to be found. Well, that's actually a lie. It was Danny all along who's playing hide and seek and locks us within the cell. Elias tries to explain the plan to her to escape the prison, but I don't think she's gonna help. A little trip throughout the inner works of the prison, and we see Elias again, behind a glass pane. He tells us to look for a vent in the far corner. Hey look, it's the robots again. These guys are the least used enemies in the game. You see them about, what, 3 times in the game? Anyway, how you take these guys out is, well, you shoot them in the head and try and avoid their shots. It's a little bit boring. I would have liked to see, one of these guys in the game, one of the dead ones, to jump scare you around the prison. I think that would have been cool. Or listen, a sequence where you versus biophage versus bot, where you can throw the biophage at the bot and he tears them apart. Or you can just take out the bot and fight the biophage, which I think would have been cool. You see a saw-like trap to prevent inmates from seeing this cool view. Elias actually to prevent them from escaping the prison. Anyway, we are now in the sewers of the prison. This place is full of pipes and, well, sewage, because it's a sewer. We see a hologram of Elias explaining his plan to escape through the sewer. The reason we see this is because he, well, transferred some of his memories through his core device to ours. Anyway, following the red pipe as instructed by the hologram, we dive right into the sewage and crawl a little around in it, only for this guy to get the short end of the stick and be abducted by an enemy we will see soon. I beat up this biophage and had a thought. Did these spike walls always exist for the guards? Or have they been put up recently because of Warden Cole wanting interesting ways for the guards to take out prisoners or biophage during the outbreak? I grabbed this audio log referencing the enemy we saw before. It's called the Corruptor, and it has the ability to go invisible and also terraform the environment in some sort of way. We'll actually see later. Crawling into the next room, it's dark and we gotta put a fuse in to light it up. And we get jumped by the Corruptor. I really like the design on these guys. Weird, multi-headed and on all fours. The way they attack people is that they try and bite you or ambush you with their cloaking ability. I wish at some point, like we saw with that other guy, they tried to ambush you from the ceiling. But they never do this, sadly. I also find this unimportant audio log explaining that, well, the door needs 2 fuses to function for some reason. I enter this room and find this weird vending machine. I like it. Jumping back into the filth, we see something move below. My expert whack on one of the worms, and a whole room of them that ambushes us. Back onto the path of the red pipe, I enter this room and fight some biophage and find a fuse to move on. I catch a glimpse of a corruptor before it runs off into a vent, and is this a little lab in the sewers? I find an audio log of this doctor's message for someone else, telling them that they are heading for the dome, and he couldn't save them as they were cocooned. he also wants to contact Morla and tells them to get out. Looking up, we now see the reason he couldn't help these cocoon people. They're all up on the roof for some reason. Anyway, I'm unsure why the biophage do this to people. Maybe for later food storage? Although they can also enter a dormant state if they lack it. Maybe it's for fusing people? I don't know. Eliasgram says we need to drain this tank so we can get out, and the code is on a guard further on. A little spook later, and we can finally speak on the mutation system and its improvements. But first, how does it work in the game? Well, when enough damage is done, tentacles sprout from the Balphage's stomach. If shot, they're taken down. If not, they regenerate all their health and recover all their limbs except their legs for some reason. And also grow this weird fleshy armor neck thing, which makes them absorb more damage. What can also happen is, past this point in the game, if you beat an enemy before the tentacles come out and don't stomp them, they can also recover from death and then instantly transformed, which is a cool thing to witness when you never know this can happen. Alright, time to begin the improvements, and for my first improvement, I'm actually quite 50-50 on it, and that is have the tentacles appear from different places on the biophages. And the reason being why I'm so 50-50 on it is, well, the game's so melee focused, introducing a shooting challenge would be a bit weird. But, well, the tentacles are already a shooting challenge, so I don't know why I'm thinking that. Anyway, I would think it'd be cool to introduce this as well. It'd give more reasons to use the grip. Think about it. Tentacles are appearing from different places on the biophage, and you're going to have to shoot at them. Setting the distance with the grip would give you more time to accurately shoot at said tentacles on different parts of the biophage. Another improvement I would add to the mutation system would be, well, variety. Like, I don't know, the head transforming into one of those head pulling things. Okay, see how I brought it back later. Or maybe have them split apart into two independent halves that try and attack you. Or, make him kinda like a corruptor and make him go invisible and do that ambushing tactic thing. Or they can run back into a vent and try and attack you later at some point. Anyway, my last improvement would be, well, giving the corruptor a mutation because they straight up don't have one in the base game. Alright, going back into, actually talking about progressing through the game. We acquire the code from the guard, and he has a voice log telling us to shoot for the tentacles. Now returning back to the draining room with the code in hand, it seems some biophage have entered the room, so I stealth around a bit, taking out a few, and fight the remaining one left. Activating the machine to drain the tank, we get a close-up of the people cocooned upon the ceiling, and now we're being ambushed by corruptors for some reason. After that, we try and enter within the tank, but this one corruptor wants to enter in with us, but we politely say no. Now inside this giant tunnel, for some reason, the draining tank is no longer draining, and we're now in a giant slip and slide set piece. I don't mind these set pieces in games, I really do enjoy them. And these things are really desperate to get Jacob for some reason. Getting up, we have a little ambush in this hall, and this side area seems to be connected to Arcus. There's also a lot of goop around here and something swimming in the water again. And, ooh, look, unavoidable head grabber. Hey, check out this nice view. Anyway, we gotta meet with Elias in the tram station, but first we gotta lift that lockdown. Now fully down in the habitat dome, we see and destroy the last of the robots. Also, this dome is home to corruptors, as you can hear, and tell that one is just hiding within these trees. Now, moving on into oxygen processing, we see a hologram of a person trying to prevent people from leaving this place to prevent the spread of the infection. In a side path, I find an audio log of this guard and Captain Ferris arguing. Ferris wants to contain the inmates, whilst the guard argues they gotta escape as well there's no more inmates anymore. Anyway, I fight some Barphage, get ambushed by this corruptor, it's a cool set piece, and find this room full of eggs. I also forgot to mention that these eggs are the way that I guess these parasites grow, and it sounds nice when you crush them. Anyway, bingo, access code. Now going back into the dome, the corruptors now pop out and try and attack us. But I fling one off and the other gives up. Fight some biophage in a side area. I believe this was supposed to be the normal entrance into the tram station. It's all gooped up and blocked off. New audio log talks about evac of civilians, but you hear a monster in the background. And looking around here, I don't think that they were too successful. Getting close to the tram station, we see this thing. Clearly a torture trap. It changes colour or when you throw things in it, and when the blood flings out on this light. Now we see Elias semi-suited up, but we gotta climb up to him, and the corruptors, they're not having it and try and grab us. But Elias has one of the worst ideas ever and hits them with his helmet. Quite foolish. Now changing into the suit, we speak with Elias. He says we gotta go outside to get into the tram, and says something about him being a murderer, but he's chill. Ferris appears looking worse for wear, and talks about there's always a price to pay, and vents us for making him fall such heights. Now outside, Snow Jacob. Why did I write that in my script? Yeah, Snow Jacob. Now Jacob outside in the snow with his helmet open manages to shut it. Anyway, time to make a comment about the suit not being very interesting. I've always disliked this trend of the protagonists of some games with spacesuits having this like boring front-facing glass where you can see their face. I like cooler designs than that. You can do. You see that new Pragmata game? He has a cool looking helmet and it opens up and you can see his face. I just don't understand this trend of having this open glass front where you can see the actor's face. Anyway, with the suit, we also get an upgraded inventory, about 6 slots, and also more health. But by how much? No idea. Alright, time to look for Elias as he's missing and we can't see him around here anywhere. Also, I gotta say, I really like this blizzard, all the snow and the lightning on the outside of Callisto. It just works really well. We think we see Elias for a second, but no, it turns out the biophage are also on the outside of the prison. Further up, we actually get a message by a close to death Elias. He looks pretty rough with his helmet being cracked. Ain't no way he's surviving. Also, Danny pulls up, points a shotgun at us, talking about she doesn't trust us, and also pulls out Elias's core while leaving us here because, well, she doesn't trust us. I find this old terraforming outpost with a voice log within from this engineer saying that the UJC are pulling out of terraforming Callisto. This is likely because of the discovery of the biophage parasite within Arcus, and, well, having this place terraformed with people on it would be dangerous because the outbreak could spread. That's why they probably made this place into a prison world, making it harder for the parasite to hop to other worlds, and easier for this Callipolis cult to experiment on it. Because, well, who's gonna miss prisoners? Anyway, moving further on into this old terraforming outpost, we see that some biophage have frozen over, with others being able to still move. Don't know how they got out here though. This spot looks perfect for a thumbnail. We see some glitchy behavior by throwing this guy off here and almost fall through this bridge and have this corruptor try and sneak attack us. I chuck him off and enter this ambush area. It was simple to fight them off, and we get a code from this dead guy here. Although I'm unsure if this guy is the one talking to us over the intercom, or it's another guy further on. Looking at his name, it turns out it was the other guy from further on. Going down to what looks like a place connected to Arcus, we get this audio log of Mauler talking about exploding variants of biophages. She thought it was a native to the planet, but no, it just turns out it's from Arcus. She also mentions Cole being different since this Europa incident. We spot a glimpse of this exploding variant and move on, and hey, look, here it is again. All these guys really do is just crawl up to you and explode. You can also shoot them and chuck them before they do that. A cool thing to point out about these guys is, well, the aftermath of one of these explosions. They leave this goop up on the ceiling and it drips down onto the floor. I find it kinda cool. Right, back to fighting some normal biophage, and this one pops out from the ceiling. This isn't a regular thing they do. Alright, now, boom, outside the snowcat garage. And within, Danny blasts this biophage right next to us and tells us to fight, so we fight. Now being done, she didn't expect us to survive. They discuss a plan to fix the snowcat and Jacob to open up the main gate. We also get the shotgun. This is one of the long weapons. There's only two in the game, this and the assault rifle. But there were supposed to be three because it looks like there was supposed to be three slots here. And I think there was. I think it was supposed to be a plasma gun. It's cut content and I don't really know what it was supposed to do. Right, I try and open up that gate, but no can do. It needs two people. Or one button pressed here and one over there. We also see the body of the guy who tried to help us back at the ambush. His audio log reveals that he tried to contact Ferris, but that didn't work, so he locked the gates. I go to the other building and get a surprise in the elevator, and look, a caged biophage. We see a guard jammed in this thing. Look, if you look at his neck, you can see the scar where they implant the core underneath. Removing him from the machine, it whirls back to life so I can fight once again. Now that's done, we can unlock the gate. We also get another warden hologram, basically saying, yeah, we can't escape. Rah, that's quite a few of them. I fight some frozen biophage and get back on the snowcat with Danny. She drives, but not straight to the ship tower, but to our ship, and she's still being very hostile, as, well, she still mistrusts Jacob. Now back inside, we see that they've took Max's body, and we also find an audio log of him speaking to his wife about the footage on Europa, and Jacob ignoring it. Danny checks on the medical supplies we were transporting. We open it up, and she's shocked. It's not what she was looking for. We get a scare from Max because, well, we're not revealing the whole truth about the medical supplies in the box. Because, well, there's also a biophage larva within a tube, but Jacob doesn't know that. All he really knows is there's a suspicious tube within a secret compartment on those boxes. Now walking to the tower, Danny explains she thought our ship was the one transporting something that started the outbreak on Europa. I also found this audio log of when the lockdown started and when the robots went hostile on everyone. Jacob speaks on why she just ripped out the core out of Elias, and she says, well, she needs to know everything that happened here, and says, hasn't Jacob done the same thing? With Jacob replying not to someone he knew, but she's questioning if he was just using Elias to escape, which, well, right now he's kinda is with her, as he's leaving out the vital component of, well, there being a secret compartment of those medical supply boxes. We look at the area just before the elevator, and this place is a bloodbath. We go up, but there's no way Cole's letting us go, so he shoots down the ship that we called, and it ends up breaking the docking tower. Jacob falls and manages to save himself by swinging himself into this vent. Now in a dream sequence on Europa, we see Danny acting weird near this box. but we get jump scared when close. Now being awakened by Danny within a new place, it turns out to be Arcus. Why is he taking off his helmet? It don't even look damaged. She says we gotta return back to Black Eye for answers, which Jacob says, hey, you're crazy, but we really have no other choice.
Had some unfortunate technical difficulties halfway through making the video. What was it? Well, my head was too big and it bent the headset out of shape, so we're using this one now. Alright, so we move along with Danny, but end up falling and surviving due to these wires. We also meet one of the blind variants of the biophages that stick to the walls in a dormant state due to, well, having no food. Do these guys also remind you of the clickers when they stick to the walls too? I also found an audio log of one of the scientists from Blackine. He was seeing if these biophages had breached some kind of contamination zone. Also, one cool fact about the blind guys, you can check which ones are going to pop off the walls or not by using the grip. So, if they are, they'll just pop off, and if they won't, they don't. Moving on, I found some blind guys and get the schematic for a fast firing revolver. It's generally good for like stunning enemies, but bad on the damage side. I also crawl through this hole and almost get grabbed by something on the other side. I try and fail to throw some of these guys up on the wall and also get a sequel to the audio log of that one scientist guy. Turns out he got jumped and now two of his colleagues are dead. He also mentioned something about the biophage being down here the whole time, evolving. Now in this bigger place, a store can sneak past these guys, taking some of them out. I also learnt that to get out here, I need to power up this big thing, so we go and do that. I sidetrack and well find the scientist who was exploring down here. He also tried to restart the power but ended up getting slimed by the blind ones down here. He also wondered if Mauler knew about the variants down here. Leaving, I see a biophage run past, so I move on whilst sneaking and fighting. This head tries to do a little sneaky attack on me, and time to restart that power. I also find one of those cult bases again, with an audio log within. The guy on the audio log says something about Paramo, which I think is a hint to PUBG, and that Callisto is a living proof of a centuries-long dream, which I think's something to do with human evolution. I turn on the switches to restore the power and boom, the power's back on. Now getting a call from Danny, she asks us if we're the ones to turn on the power. We obviously say yeah, but we gotta stay silent. Now getting back to the transport hub, we almost get grabbed whilst getting back. Time to turn on the ride. And during the ride, you'll have like biophage, the blind ones jump on, but you should throw them off because you want to keep that ammo for the two-head. Now, what is there to say about the two-head? It is a very boring boss. It's got a good design and has that interesting mechanic of retaining the side that's damaged the least, but when the boss fight is dodge the one shot and unload lead into it, it's kinda boring. So, how could we make it more interesting? Well, what I thought of is by changing up the second phase. Whichever side you damage the most now changes what the two-head mutates into. Now, if it's the side with the small arm remaining, the boss will now grow two arms, attack faster and move faster, but will be now light enough for the grip to be used on it and will allow you to throw it into hazards. But do note, holding it too long with the grip will drain your battery pretty quickly, so chuck it fast if you can. Now, if it's the side with the big arm will grow even bigger, allowing the boss to do charge attacks and slam attacks like some angry tripod. But you will be able to take it out by shooting these new glowing weak spots on its legs, allowing you to do a critical attack, taking it out. Now that we're done with that, I find a new audio log of this guy in distress talking about if you see the UJC response squad, run the other way. So I guess when the outbreak happened here they sent in a cleanup crew, right? Now contacting Danny, we tell her we're at a service tunnel. She says she's on the other side. We also find another new audio log, this time of a disgruntled miner. He's mad about being sold a false dream amongst the stars, and he just really wants to return home. Now in Arcus proper, we get to see this place is a real shanty town. Oh yeah, another miner's log. This woman's telling the UJC that it's actually a waste of time digging around here, and they're also demanding overtime. But what she doesn't know is that they're looking for the biophage down here, the big one. And I wonder how they got glued on that they're down here. Did they see a parasite just roaming around or something? Oh yeah, we need a keycard to move on. So I do some sneaking around and found another audio log. Seems that when they dug the thing up, people started getting sick and a lockdown happened. Oh yeah, and I found the schematic for the burst assault rifle. It's a pretty solid weapon. I tend to use it over the shotgun as well because it's got good stun on the biophage. Oh yeah, and we get a message from Danny saying she found something up here and to come and see it. So we do, and make our way up there. Now up there we found another audio log by that cult guy, saying that he couldn't let it spread and that what he's found is the key, i.e. Autumn evolution. A few fights later and we found another audio log by this guy that's saying that the UJC's gathering up everyone at the square, making them believe that they're getting a vaccine, but we really know that's where they're going to do the deed. Now up here we find another audio log, but this guy's freaking out whilst being infected, and Danny's also freaking out. But this is because she's reliving the memories of what the soldiers did to the people here at Arcus. She also gets a sneak attack slapped by a giant two-head for some reason, and for this boss fight, they throw in a random biophage for a little bit of spice. We walk along with Danny and get temporarily separated, but make our way back. Now in a colder section of the mine with a big underground lab, we see a greeting message from Marla, basically explaining that the biophage can force accelerated evolution. We also get to see the source of the biophage, this big thing. It was alive, but the security killed it. And during that outbreak, one person retained their intelligence whilst being infected. Also, Jacob discovers those tubes had biophage inside. Also, Ferris is back now. He's bigger and near invulnerable, so we kinda just hit him till a cutscene triggers. With that being done, Danny gets infected, with Theris talking about she will be one of us. We take the elevator out here, but Danny doesn't want to turn into one of those things and tries to end it, but we tell her we'll try and find a cure in the Warden's tower. We get an audio log of Marla and the Warden arguing about what happened on Europa, as he sees it as a revelation of what to do here, while she sees it as a tragedy. We see what the biophage have done to the shoe, and we plan on heading to the Warden's tower, but we get captured by robots, with one of them dragging us all the way back to our cell. But we get a call from Marla saying that she has Danny and to come to a lab in the heart of the prison. She opens up the door to the cell and we see how empty the prison is now. Going into the inner parts of the prison, we fight a two-head, get a fuse, install the fuse, and see that the prisoners were being watched. Another Warden Cole hologram appears saying that every choice Jacob has made has led him here. What choice will he make now? Become something greater, or remain the same? I found an audio log of one of the scientists taking an interest in a prisoner with an enhanced will to survive and putting them in some sort of program. I also fight this biophage and then proceed into this vent, seeing a body being dragged through it. Finding the second scientist's log, 2 weeks have passed and the prisoner's strength has increased but his mental state has declined, with you being able to hear him scream in the background. I also fight a two-head and boom, we're in Mauler's lab now. Also, the last scientist's log. She questions her prisoner with him repeating, "Can you hear me?" and complains about something being in his head. Within the lab you also get to see a diced up parasite, strapped down biophages, and prisoners in various stages of transformation. Now meeting up with Marla, we question her on what happened on Europa, so she links our core with Danny's core, someone who was actually there. Marla also tells us that we can cure her by extracting the juice from the Alpha, that's Ferris, and that this outbreak was all to make another Subject Zero, someone with a human intelligence and a biophage's strength. Looking at Subject Zero and Theris though, you can tell that they're different, like Ferris looks like a bigger, meaner human with an odd colour, and this guy just straight up looks like a biophage. Does this mean Ferris took well to the biophage then? I don't know. Whilst leaving, we see a hallucination of Max, and Danny asks for a recap of the events after being punched by the bots. Jacob tells her Marla is helping us to get a cure, but can we trust her? We don't really know. Also, the last audio log is by Warden Cole, and simply stating that he will just let the outbreak happen in the prison. we see that this place is pretty decked out. We also complete the data transfer of the cores, allowing us to see what happened on Europa on that day. Putting it simply, they just released a diluted version of the biophage, and that cube we see in the visions was actually just a vial all along. And that's what Max has been trying to make us accept all along. Also, I think this kid is supposed to be Danny's sister. Anyway, we gotta leave Danny behind because she's almost been taken over. We confront the warden and his cult friends. They want to see Jacob and Ferris fight. So, we fight. Also, Ferris sounds less human now. Now, we fight him, but it's kinda like the previous fight, but he glows the more you hit him. Once in his final state, he's really growing now, and he transforms into this thing. Why's it got so many fingers? Now that he's transformed, you kinda just shoot him in the head, break that thing, and just shoot him in the head some more. Now that that's done, we take the Ferris juice and use it on Danny to cure her, whilst Cole's trying to bribe us with escape. But he didn't like how we cured her, so he's gonna self-destruct the place. We get to see that Jacob could run the whole time, and there's only one escape pod left. So we shove Danny in it with the proof of the biophage and fight off the biophage that are coming after us. The game ends on us getting a hallucination jump scare by Ferris and Marla saying that there might be another way to escape. Well, you've almost watched through the whole video now. You might as well like and subscribe. Also, the Saga campaign analysis, I just need to write a script. Got all the footage recorded that I need.